before you get too much further into the actual green process and getting everything filled in, one of the last and final things you're going to want to do is basically do your finish prep work on your green. And what I mean by that is, obviously we ran the compactor over it, we did the hand tamping we saw earlier, but you're still going to get some areas where you can see there's still a little bit of a line or a groove that was created from the compactor. Plus there's a few areas here, there, and we might run into some rough spots here where some of the material came out, and areas like this, obviously that will telegraph once we get into the actual green, like in and around here where the tier is. So what we're going to want to do in that particular case, we're going to show you a little tip or technique that we like to use to really hide all of those areas and finish it off. And it also allows you to shape and make breaks and manipulate the green if you're not satisfied or happy with how it's rolling right now, or where your breaks are, or if you have to correct a tier. And we'll show you that in just a minute. Material is our extra, what we refer to as paver fines. Other places might call it a stone dust. This particular makeup is a crushed up recycled concrete with about 3/8 inch pea gravel size in it. Now, for us to do the touch-up work on the green, obviously any of the aggregate is not what we want, but we have to be able to get the fines or that powder out. So what I like to use, or what we like to use, is just a good old-fashioned stainless steel spaghetti strainer. We don't want anything with very large holes in it, but just enough that we can get our material to sift through, which would be our fines or the powder. So essentially what we want to do is just get a bucket. Now obviously this material, you can see what's dry and what's wet. We did get some rain, so when it's wet it makes it difficult to screed through. But as you work this quite a few times, the fines will fall out, and then you're left with this right here, which is like a fine sand, if you will. Once this gets wet to like an oatmeal consistency, you can then put this on the green, and it will fill in with a trowel, will fill in any gaps or any crevices or creases left by the compactor plate. If you need to change or manipulate a brake or to fix part of the tier, which is what we're going to do in just a moment, this is the material that you want. You can shake it on dry when the base material is still wet, and that'll soak in, and you can shape it that way. Or you can shake it on dry and then mist it with a squirt bottle. Or in this particular instance, what we're going to do is make quite a bit of this, and we're going to get it wet like a mortar mixture, and then we're going to just trowel it in any of the uneven areas. Okay, so here's part of the green or the sub-base area that's going to need some attention. You can see the crease mark here from the compactor, so we'll fill those in. And then we've got some just rough patch areas here, and we'll start working on those right now. So once we've got the material, the fines that we wanted screeded, we can put some in a bucket, or I'm sorry, in the bucket, and then in the strainer. And then all we're going to do is shake over, and you can see that'll start to fill it in. Now we can then obviously control how much goes in, and when it looks like we've got a sufficient amount and it covers the holes or the rough area, then what I like to use is, now for our areas where we've got significant indentations, or we need to change and manipulate any of the grade, putting it on dry and misting it is not always the best option. So what we like to do is take that material and get it wet and make it like a peanut butter consistency. That way when it goes in, it's nice and wet. And then what we're able to do, again using that trowel, goes on just like a mortar mix with concrete. And then what we're going to do is just work it and trowel it in, and it helps bond with your base material underneath. Okay, so we're continuing to work along the area where this upper tier is, which starts this way and wraps around this way. And if you remember earlier in the videos, we had a real sharp transition because the compactor made a crease. So what we're doing is we're filling that crease area in with the wet mixture of fines that we created from screeding it out with the steel colander. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to continue to work this in very similar as if we were finishing concrete. And it will fill in all of those voids and become a very, very smooth transition from this upper tier to the lower tier. And as you can see, any of these marks that were coming down, those are all getting filled in all in through here, and that big crease that was along in here is now gone. So this does take a little bit of technique, but you can pick it up pretty quick. Just apply enough pressure. And remember, as you're pushing away, you lift this side up a little bit. And as you're pulling towards you, you lift this side up a little bit. And just apply some decent pressure just to smooth it out. But you'll pick this technique up in no time. And this makes all the difference in having a nice smooth roll versus a bumpy one. Now, if you have a large area or larger patches, for example, like this here, where there just wasn't enough fines getting into the actual rock material, and now that it's drying, it's starting to really expose a lot of the aggregate. What you can do, which I've already done, but I'll hit it one more time, is just take the hose on the shower setting and just get it wet. And you're gonna just let it sit there for a little while and let that base, which is pretty compacted, but you're gonna let that just sit, and it will soak in, but get that wet again. That way then you can come back and you can sprinkle on the fine material. It'll fill in and all this, and then the moisture that's in the actual existing base will soak up into the freshly shaken on or screeded fines, and it'll get wet, and then you can just go over it with the trowel. This is a great thing to do during the summertime when it's extremely hot and dry out, and your base area will dry up rather quickly, and it'll obviously, then we can address all of these areas and any place where we have any of the lines or the marks. And up here it's a little bit hard to see, but we fixed that whole upper tier area and any of the other indicated spots. Now that we got the area completely prepped and ready for our green to be rolled out, you've got your cups all set and level. The one thing we're going to want to do is just do a once over one more time. It doesn't hurt to double and triple check before you roll your putting green out over top of your finished or prep base area. What we're looking for are any imperfections, any stones that may have been kicked loose, because those stones, which I can see a couple right there and right there, those will cause the turf to dome and obviously not have a good roll. And what we don't want to do is roll the turf out and then have to find these and then come back and try to move the turf, and then we end up disrupting the whole area. So it's always a good idea to do a double or triple check just to make sure. You can take a leaf blower, and that's not a bad idea, just to kind of hit it on low, see if you see any stones rolling around, but try to get any organic material off the surface and try to get any of these smaller pebbles.